Hey everyone, RogueGold here, and today I want to have a chat about the status effect meta that's plaguing PvP at the moment. I don't think I really have to explain what's going on in there. Pretty much everyone who's gone in knows that the majority of people just run status effects on their gear, toss a Stinger Hive into a group of enemy players, and boom, they win. So today, I want to outline 3 fixes that could possibly correct this meta pretty significantly. Not decimating status effects and their potential, but making them much more in line with the rest of the gear and build options. I thought these through pretty well and chose them because I feel like they're actually realistic things the devs could do and implement with minimal overhauls or significant development time. That being said, I've tiered them based on the amount of work it would take for them to be achieved. So the first idea would be the simplest to add, the second a little more work, and the third the most work. And like I said, I think all or even some of these changes can make a big difference in the PvP landscape we're seeing today. Sound good? Let's go. Starting with the simplest edition, because like I said, these will be tiered in terms of their simplicity and feasibility, the first change I'd make is to have players be cleansed of all status effects upon going into the down state. I mean, this kind of just seems like a no-brainer to me. Currently, if you're hit by an even somewhat powerful fire or bleed and you go down, there's no chance your team can revive you. You get ticked like twice more and you're dead. If guns can't shoot you through walls and kill you when you're downed, why should status effects be able to? Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean I think you should be immune from status effects when you're down. If you go down within a Stinger Hive's radius and it hits you with another set of charges, you're gonna die. Or if someone throws a flame grenade onto the spot where you're getting revived, you should die. But I just think it makes sense for you to be cleansed from pre-existing status effects upon being downed. It's just way more balanced and gives teams an actual chance to revive their teammates. So yeah, that's the easiest and simplest change I think the devs could make to help combat this meta. Moving on to the second fix, and this one would definitely take a bit more work, but is still a relatively simple concept in my mind, and that is to add a status effect immunity buff onto one of the Hive mods. I mean, this kind of just seems obvious to me. I'm not sure why this wasn't in from launch. In Div 1, we had the Immunizer support station, and honestly, I'd argue that something like that is needed even more in this game over the first, since our overall survivability is lower and the time to kill in PvE and PvP is shorter. But regardless of why it's not a thing already, we need it now. Bad. As for which Hive mod I think they should use, my picks come down to either the booster or the reviver. Neither have much use in PvP at the moment, and both could use a bit more flavor in my opinion. For the booster, it just kind of makes sense since it's already boosting up your agent without directly healing them, so for it to give both weapon damage and status effect immunity could be pretty cool to play around with. As for the reviver though, I feel like this could be pretty cool because it would allow for a lot more support build options in PvP. The problem with using the reviver in PvP now is A, like I said previously, you die so quickly when down due to lingering status effects, and B, it just doesn't give a good enough reason for it to use over the restorer. If it gave status effect immunity, however, either through some type of secondary charges hitting you while you're still up, or you just get it whenever you're in its radius, it could be pretty huge and beneficial for the game in my mind. You'd have an actual chance to revive your teammates in PvP, which doesn't happen often these days. And in case anyone is heading down to the comments to say this would be OP or would kill status effect builds entirely, don't forget that the Jammer Pulse is extremely strong right now, with its quick charge up time and its range. Plus, we have the EMP Sticky Bomb coming to the game in less than a week. There would be plenty of options to counter this immune station, unlike now how there's no option to counter status effects except for tuning your entire build to focus on doing so via hazard protection. Moving to the final change that I think the devs really need to contemplate making, and that's to rebalance how skills are affected by skill tiers. I feel like even if this change isn't made to directly combat the status effect issues, it has to come at some point. Because right now, it's pretty out of whack. There's 2 sub-issues here in my mind. One is that skill tiers aren't really the major way you buff up your skills, the attribute rolls on your gear are, and this extends beyond just status inflicting builds, so that's an issue. Secondly, status inflicting skills are inherently going to be more powerful than non-status inflicting skills, and that's because you can double buff them on your build by not only running status effects, but skill damage as well. Let's tackle the first issue, the skill tier scaling. Something that's kind of eluded me is why skills are set up the way they are. Prior to Warlords launching and the new skill tier system being implemented, the devs stated on State of the Game that the vast majority of your skill power scaling would come from skill tiers. So riddle me this, if I run 6 skill tiers, why do my skills feel lackluster? The only way to significantly buff them up is by rolling the correct attributes on your gear, skill repair, skill damage, etc. Now the combination of these skill tiers and those attributes are undeniably strong, but why are things that you have to sacrifice the most to use, that being skill tiers, not more powerful on their own? With the way it is now, people can have really powerful skills without having to invest much, if at all, into skill tiers, which is an issue. And like I said previously, status effect skills are always more powerful because you can buff them doubly. So here's what I propose. The devs rebalance the distribution between skill tier gains and the attribute gains for skill effectiveness. How? How? Well, I just do a simple conversion. We can roll 10% skill damage and stat effects per gear piece now, just make that value 5% and then add that taken away 5% onto each respective skill tier. And then on skills that don't inflict a status effect, like the Oxidizer, Chem Launcher, or the Sniper Turret, give them a bit of extra damage per skill tier, like an additional 5 or 10%, since they can't be buffed up twice on your gear. Now, of course, these numbers might not be the optimal ones to use, that's the dev's job to figure that out, but in principle, what these changes would do is promote actual skill tier based status effect builds, instead of the blue and red comprised ones that we see now, as well as a rebalance to the skill landscape to buff up the non-status inflicting skills, because they basically have zero use or viability in PvP at the moment. Now, like I said before, this would definitely take the most work out of all those options on the dev's end, but would likely result in the largest changes, for the better, to how PvP is and plays at the moment. Alright guys, well those are my top 3 changes that the devs could make to essentially cure the status effect plague in PvP. My goal is not to diminish them to nothing or nerf them into the ground, I just strongly believe that they need to follow the same rules as everything else in the game. That being that they need to have counters to them, as well as making you actually invest in them for them to be good. That's all. If we can achieve this, then I firmly believe we'll see a better PvP scene at the end of the day. And like I said, even if only one or some of these changes were to be added, I think it would be nothing but beneficial for the health of the game and PvP specifically. Thanks for watching everyone, leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe with the notifications on so you can be updated every time I upload. Comment down below what you think about my propositions for solving this plague, as well as what additions, changes, or fixes you'd want the devs to add to create the best PvP environment possible. Until the next one guys, RogueGold, out.